Pay close attention to what comes next because it has the potential to permanently shift the way you show up in relationships or leave you locked inside patterns that are quietly draining your respect, your attractiveness, and your emotional grounding. In the opening seconds of any real connection, most men operate under a false assumption. They believe attraction is driven by the right words, the right compliment, or a strong physical presence. But what is actually happening beneath the surface is far more nuanced and far more powerful. A woman does not simply respond to what you say. She responds to what she feels when she is near you, particularly in moments of emotional closeness where her guard begins to come down and her awareness becomes sharper. This is precisely where most men lose their edge without ever noticing it. Here is the reality of what is happening in those moments when you are genuinely connected with a woman emotionally, mentally, and physically. And every word you speak carries amplified weight, not because of the words themselves, but because of the internal state she is in while receiving them. In that heightened state, her mind is quietly scanning for specific signals: safety, confidence, leadership, emotional steadiness. If what she picks up on is hesitation, neediness, or inconsistency, her attraction does not disappear dramatically. It simply begins to erode quietly and without announcement. But when she senses a calm, grounded confidence, a presence that holds steady without applying pressure, something deeper inside her responds to that. This is not a manipulation strategy. It is alignment. You are not putting on a performance. You are demonstrating who you actually are without feeling the need to justify or explain yourself. The men who truly understand this do not rush. They do not overtalk. They do not look to her for reassurance in those moments. They stay fully present and they lead the energy of the interaction without forcing anything. That presence alone communicates more than any rehearsed line ever could. Here is a truth worth sitting with. Attraction is not only ignited by what you do, it is sustained by what she feels in the absence of your insecurity. When you speak from certainty, when your tone stays calm, when your intention feels clear rather than desperate, her mind begins to link you to something uncommon. The combination of stability and mystery. That pairing is powerful enough to change how she sees you relative to every other man she has encountered, because once she has felt that kind of emotional grounding in your presence, everything else starts to register differently by comparison. To understand what is truly happening in her mind during those moments of closeness, you have to go deeper. When she is physically connected to you, her emotional filters shift. She becomes more attuned to subtle cues rather than obvious actions. This is why a calm, anchored presence tends to feel more attractive than loud or exaggerated confidence. In that state, she's not processing your words the way she would in a regular conversation. Instead, she's responding to emotional signals carried through tone, timing, and consistency. When your energy is steady, she feels safe. When your energy is erratic, she feels uncertainty, even if she cannot name the reason. This is the exact moment where attraction either grows roots or quietly begins to pull away. Many men make the error of trying to impress precisely when they should simply be present. They talk too much, over-explain, or reach for reassurance without realizing that doing so breaks the emotional equilibrium. What she experiences as a result is a shift from feeling attracted to feeling like she is evaluating you, and that shift almost never works in your favor. A man who genuinely understands this does not scramble to fill every silence. He lets space exist naturally, and in that space, something interesting happens. She becomes more aware of her own feelings. When a woman grows more conscious of what she's feeling while she's with you, and there is no pressure or confusion pushing those feelings around, she begins to associate you with emotional clarity. That association carries weight because clarity is something she may rarely encounter in her interactions with others. Over time, it becomes part of how she perceives you at a level that goes well beyond the surface. It shapes how she remembers the entire experience afterward, not because of anything you performed, but because of what she felt while she was inside that moment with you. That feeling becomes her internal reference point. It is what her mind returns to when she experiences other connections. And if what she felt with you was calm, certain, and emotionally safe, you have set a standard that is genuinely difficult for others to replicate. This is the quiet power most men miss entirely. In the end, attraction is not primarily about appearance or effort. It is about the emotional imprint you leave behind in moments where words are secondary and your presence does the speaking. What matters just as much as those peak moments is something far less dramatic: the consistency of your behavior across time. A single strong impression can spark interest, but it is the ongoing pattern of how you show up that decides whether that interest develops into something deeper. When a woman experiences you as emotionally stable across multiple interactions, her nervous system begins to relax around you. That is not a small thing. It is a psychological response to the kind of predictability that comes from inner strength rather than routine or boredom. When predictability comes from that place, it generates trust. And trust is one of the most powerful engines of lasting attraction. Many men create the opposite effect without realizing it. They swing between extremes, intensely attentive one moment and then suddenly distant the next, expressive and then withdrawn without any explanation. From the inside, this might feel like maintaining an edge or keeping things interesting. From her perspective, it registers as emotional instability. The human mind is wired to look for patterns. And when those patterns feel dangerously unpredictable, attraction gradually gives way to caution. She may never say this out loud, but internally, she starts limiting how much of herself she invests. When you are with her in intimate moments, your consistency in that moment is inseparable from what she has already experienced from you in the lead up to it. If your behavior over time has been grounded, respectful, and aligned, she enters those moments already carrying a sense of security in your presence. That security opens her up. It makes her more receptive, more emotionally engaged, and less resistant. If your behavior has been inconsistent, she may still be physically present, but emotionally, she will remain partially behind the wall holding something back. This is exactly why men who focus only on in-the-moment tactics consistently miss the larger picture. Attraction is not assembled in isolated flashes. It is built through accumulated experiences that shape her overall perception of who you are. Snorts. Every single interaction either reinforces stability or introduces doubt. And over time, those small impressions add up into a clear emotional conclusion in her mind. When she no longer feels the need to second-guess you, when your actions match your words, when your energy holds steady regardless of what the moment brings, she begins to experience something increasingly rare. That emotional reliability becomes anchored to you, and that anchoring influences how deeply she values the connection, creating something that surface-level attraction simply cannot replicate. There is another truth that most men never pause to consider. Attraction is profoundly shaped by how you carry yourself when you are not trying to prove anything. In those intimate moments, she's not only watching what you do, she's registering whether you appear internally grounded or whether you are dependent on her reactions to feel okay. A man who is internally centered does not need constant feedback. He does not reach for approval. He does not restructure his entire emotional state based on how she responds in any given moment. He stays anchored in himself, and that creates a quiet but unmistakable contrast that she can feel without needing it explained. When she senses that you are not performing to earn her validation, something shifts in how she perceives you. She begins to see you as someone who is choosing to be there, not someone who needs to be there. That distinction is everything. Neediness, even when it goes unspoken, introduces pressure into the interaction. It places an unspoken burden on her as though she's now responsible for managing your emotional state. Over time, that burden erodes attraction. But when you move through the interaction with a genuine sense of inner independence, she feels liberated to simply be herself without pressure, without expectation. That freedom is not just comfortable, it is deeply attractive because she does not feel managed, controlled, or emotionally obligated. She feels invited rather than required, and that subtle but critical difference determines how deeply she can settle into the connection. The more relaxed she feels, the more genuine her responses become, and the more real the connection feels from her end. You must also understand that silence, when it is used with awareness, is not a void to be filled. It is a form of communication. Many men rush to cover every pause with words because they believe they need to keep the momentum going. But silence, when held comfortably, signals confidence. It says that you are not afraid of stillness, not reliant on constant stimulation, and not anxious about whether the interaction is losing energy. That kind of calm presence allows her to settle into the moment rather than stay mentally busy trying to manage the conversation. Over time, these understated behaviors accumulate into a distinct impression. She begins to associate being with you with emotional ease rather than emotional work. In a world where so many interactions feel rushed, uncertain, or inconsistent, that ease becomes something she values more than she may consciously realize. It quietly shapes her desire to remain connected and present with you. Now consider the role of emotional imprint, because what she feels during those moments does not stay contained within them. It follows her. The human mind naturally revisits experiences that carried strong emotional signals, especially when those experiences felt different from the ordinary. If her time with you was calm, grounded, and emotionally clear, her memory of you becomes tied to that feeling. When she encounters other men, whether she's aware of it or not, she holds those interactions up against the standard you established. That comparison does not always happen consciously. It takes place in the background of her thinking, guided by how she felt rather than by anything that was said. If other interactions feel more chaotic, more uncertain, or more emotionally taxing, her mind naturally drifts back toward the experience that felt easier and more aligned. This is how a lasting impression takes form, not through effort designed to impress, but through the consistency of how you made her feel when it genuinely counted. It is worth being clear about one important thing. None of this is about trying to engineer her thoughts or guarantee a particular result. Psychology does not function as a script that produces exact outcomes on command. What it offers instead is an understanding of human behavioral patterns so that you can show up in a way that is authentic, stable, and self-aware. When you operate from that foundation, your interactions become more natural and the connections you build become healthier and more sustainable. In those intimate moments, your presence should communicate clarity rather than confusion. Your energy should tell her that comfortable within yourself, at ease with the situation, and not relying on anything outside yourself to feel secure. When she experiences that, she no longer needs to manage your emotional experience while also navigating her own. That shared ease is what allows a connection to deepen over time. And here is something many men never factor in. She remembers how she felt with you long after the specific details have blurred. Not every word, not every action, but the emotional atmosphere you created. If that atmosphere was genuine and grounded, it leaves a mark that reaches beyond that single experience and begins to shape how she thinks about connection itself. This is why developing real emotional intelligence, genuine self-control, and authentic presence creates far more lasting impact than any surface-level tactic ever could. Because what truly makes you unforgettable is not something you tried to say. It is the internal state she was in while she was with you and the lingering sense of clarity, calm, and genuine connection she carries with her after the moment has passed. Bring it all together now, because understanding any of this without putting it into practice changes nothing. The men who genuinely stand out are not the ones who pursue the hardest or speak the most persuasively. They are the ones who consistently bring the same grounded presence into every interaction. That presence is built through self-awareness, emotional discipline, and the capacity to remain centered regardless of how any given moment feels. When you carry that into intimate connection, it naturally shapes how she experiences you at a level that goes far beneath the surface. In those moments, your role is not to perform or to provoke a reaction. Your role is to remain fully present, clear about yourself, and aligned with what you genuinely intend. When your mind is not clouded by insecurity or overthinking, your energy becomes stable, and stability is something that is felt, not explained. She may never consciously analyze it, but she will experience it through how comfortable, relaxed, and secure she feels simply being near you. This is where men either quietly elevate how they are perceived or unknowingly diminish their own value. If you approach those moments carrying pressure, a need to impress, or an underlying fear of losing her interest, that internal state will bleed into your behavior in ways you may not even notice. The pace of your words, the tension in your body, the way you respond or fail to respond. But when you operate from calm assurance, your presence reflects clarity and control, and that naturally draws her in without force. It is also essential to understand that attraction is not something that can be demanded or engineered through control. It develops through alignment. Your responsibility is to show up as your most grounded self, not to orchestrate how she feels about it. When you let go of the need to control the outcome, you free your focus to fall on the quality of your presence. And that presence, when it is real, becomes the foundation of something that lasts. If there is one thing to take from all of this, let it be this. What makes a woman never look at another connection the same way is not a phrase, not a technique, and not a single unforgettable moment. It is the consistent emotional experience she has with you across time. When that experience feels safe, grounded, and genuine, it creates an internal standard that other interactions simply cannot meet. And that standard is built quietly, moment after moment, through a confidence that never needs to be announced because it is already being lived. If this made you see something differently, share it with someone who could use the perspective.